Hello, I'm Debbie Bailey, and welcome to Pilates with Debbie. This DVD has been designed by me for all levels and abilities. Together we'll work through a posture setup, a short warm-up, a program of Pilates exercises designed to work all the major muscle groups, and finally, a relaxing cool down and stretch. I do hope you enjoy the workout. Pilates posture setup. Stand on your mat with your feet hip-width apart. Draw up through your thighs, lengthening your spine and the back of your neck. Roll the shoulders and let your shoulder blades connect and gently drop down your back behind you. Relax your arms and draw the chin slightly downwards. Then very gently rock the pelvis forwards and backwards, feeling the lower back both arch when the pubic bone tilts back and both flatten as the pubic bone tilts forward. We want to settle into the neutral spine position with the hip bone above the pubic bone and the natural curve in your lower back. Then gently draw your navel back towards your spine, activating your core muscles. Slow your breath down, breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth, keeping your shoulders drawn down and your belly button gently drawn in, just feeling the rise and fall of the rib cage. Circling the arm forward and opening to the side and slightly behind, alternating from one arm to the other, drawing the shoulder blade down the back as the arm circles and keeping the neck long. Remember the knees are slightly softened. Both arms circling together, lengthening up through the spine, relaxing the arms at the sides, pushing back into a squat position, gently flexing the tail underneath, rolling through the spine back to upright. Taking a deep breath in again, sitting back into the squat on the exhalation. Tucking the tail under, rolling up through the back to standing. Remembering to draw the core muscles in, directing the knees forward above the big toes, tucking under, rolling to the top. Slowly sliding over to one side, reaching down the thigh with the hand and drawing back to upright. Taking the out breath as you slide away from the center and the in breath as you return, and allowing the head to go over with the movement. Raising one arm above the shoulder and then the other, and taking a swinging motion down towards the legs and back up again. Allowing the chest and the tummy to come right down towards the legs and the back to arch as you swing towards the floor. Pressing the palms together, drawing them down in front of the rib cage. Breathing in, drawing the navel inwards and rotating from the waist towards the front corner. Breathing in on the return. Breathing out, rotating to the other side. Breathing in to draw back to center. Remember to turn the upper body as one piece and keep the hips facing the front as much as possible. Your first Pilates exercise, the roll down. Deep breath, drawing the core muscles inwards. As you exhale, lower your chin and roll your upper body towards the mat. Breathe in at the bottom, reconnecting the core muscles and rolling slowly back to the upright position. Repeating this, pulling up through the pelvic floor as the navel connects inwards, remembering to let the back arch and the neck relax so the crown of the head is leading you towards the mat. Remembering to open the chest in the upright position. Try not to push the hips behind you, Keep the hip aligned above the heel and leading with your core muscles back to the upright position. The arms should stay relaxed. They just hang towards the mat as you roll down and settle back at your sides as you roll back to the standing position. If you feel any tightness in the lower back, soften your knees even more to accommodate any stiffness in the lower lumbar region. The roll down and press up. Breathing in, drawing your core muscles inwards and rolling down to the mat as before. Walking the hands forwards into a level 1 box press up position. Knees under hips, hands beneath shoulders. Lowering the chest towards the mat, bending the elbows and pushing back up onto straight arms. Walking the hands back towards the legs, transferring the weight onto the soles of the feet and uncurling back to the standing position. Breathing in again, zipping and hollowing the tummy as you roll to the mat. Soften the knees as much as you need to touch your hands down. Walk forwards again to your level 1 box press up position. Breathe in as the chest lowers to the floor and out as you push onto straight arms. Again, we walk backwards, drawing the tummy muscles in and uncurling to standing. We can move this exercise on a level to the 3/4 press up. Rolling down as before, but this time taking the hands a little bit further forwards, allowing the hips to drop down a little closer to the mat, making a diagonal line between the shoulders and the knees. Breathing in as the chest lowers to the mat, breathing out as you push up again. And as before, walking the hands back, tipping the toes under and uncurling to standing. Let's repeat that again. Inhaling, zipping and hollowing the core, softening the knees so the hands can touch down, and walking forwards. Check that you have the upper body weight above the wrists and the neck level with the spine as you perform your press up. Our return journey again with the hands and uncurling the body to standing. Now you can stay at either of these 2 earlier levels, or you can go up a level into the full press up. Breathing in, rolling down, walking forwards this time so you're balanced on your toes with your shoulders above your wrists. This press up is quite a lot harder and requires more strength. Walking the hands back, keeping the legs straight as Fionn has on this demonstration, or perhaps lowering the knees to the mat first before you uncurl. I suggest you perform perhaps 6 single press-ups to begin with, rolling up in between each one and staying at whatever level you're happy with until you gradually gain strength and progress. Always keep your core muscles drawn tightly inwards. We make a transition now onto the mat for our first prone exercise. Checking you're in neutral spine, drawing the core muscles in, and as earlier exercises, rolling down towards the mat. But this time walking the hands forward and settling onto your tummy into the Pilates prone position. Hands crossed in front of you with your forehead resting on the backs of your hands. Legs extended out behind you. Core muscles drawn gently away from the mat. Inhaling, scooping them in a little further, and as you exhale, lifting one leg slightly off the mat and as you breathe in, returning it to the floor. Make sure the legs are entirely straight and there's an extension through the leg as if someone were taking hold of your ankle and gently drawing it away from your center. Make sure that the front of your pelvis stays on the mat and your upper body is relaxed, with your neck long and your shoulder blades drawn gently together. The very top of the thigh should stay in contact with the mat throughout, so we don't overextend or overarch the lower back. If you start to feel tension in the back, keep the leg lift a little lower. To progress this exercise, we can go into a double leg lift. Exactly the same as the single, but lifting both of the legs at the same time. The breathing pattern is identical. Exhaling as the legs lift, inhaling as they gently flow down towards the mat. And the tops of the thighs again stay in contact with the floor, attempting to not overarch or extend the lower back. If you find this creates a lot of tension in the lower lumbar region, please revert to the single leg lift. Every time the legs float off the floor, the core muscles pull inwards, hollowing away from your mat. Finally, relaxing the legs down onto the floor, pushing to the knees, taking the buttocks back towards the feet, stretching the arms ahead of you, allowing the tummy to drop down towards and between the thighs into a relaxation pose. Spine stretch forward. Sitting on your mat with your legs extended ahead of you, knees slightly bent, dropping outwards, and the soles of the feet facing in together. Lengthening through the spine and the back of the neck with the shoulders down. Breathing in. As you breathe out, drawing the core muscles inwards, gently lowering the chin onto the chest and rolling the back forwards towards the mat. Take a deep in breath. Draw the navel in again and slowly roll yourself back to the sitting position. Always remembering to draw the core muscles in before the chin comes down onto the upper chest and you roll your back forwards. As you draw yourself back up, remember to perch yourself on your sit bones, draw your shoulder blades gently together behind you and lengthen your neck. Gradually, you will gain more flexibility in your spine and be able to go that bit closer to your mat. Remember too, the more you draw your core muscles in, the easier you will find it is to get down to your mat. Never be satisfied with the length of your spine when you're in the upright position. Always visualize a piece of string attached to the crown of your head, drawing you up towards the ceiling. Think of zipping and hollowing the tummy muscles and allowing the shoulder blades to settle down your back. As you roll forward, make sure you're not hunching your shoulders up to your ears. We want to try to keep the shoulder girdles stable throughout all our Pilates exercises. Finally, bring your knees together and relax. The clam, lying on your left side. Lie on your left with your knees slightly bent and drawn a little in front of your hips. Your feet are together and slung loosely behind your knees. Support your head, either with a cushion between the top of the arm and the side of your head or with your arm curled backwards. The hand rests on the top thigh. Breathe in, draw the core muscles in, and as you breathe out, raise your knee to the ceiling. As you inhale, let your knee gently lower back to the other leg. As you bring your knee up to point to the ceiling, make sure that your feet stay touching each other. You're creating a diamond shape between the legs, from the pubic bone to the ankles. As you lift your leg, lift it high, but try not to let it push you back onto the buttock underneath. And every time your leg lifts, you should be bracing your core muscles and trying to shrink the side of your waist away from your mat, creating a little tunnel or a chink of light beneath you. Make sure the top shoulder stays above the bottom shoulder and the top hip above the bottom hip. And each time the leg lowers, keep as much control as each time you lift it. When you've finished, relax your knee in front of you, in line with your hip. Supine posture setup. As this is our first supine exercise today, let's run through a lying posture setup. Feet on the mat, hip width apart. Knees pointing up towards the ceiling. Tailbone down on the mat, spine lengthened along the floor. Think of drawing the shoulders down the mat, reaching gently with the fingertips towards the heels. The chin is drawn down very slightly towards the chest, elongating the line at the back of the neck. Make sure too that your rib cage is soft. Gently rock the pelvis, forwards and backwards or up and down, feeling as the pubic bone drops, the back arching away from the floor, and as the pubic bone lifts towards the ceiling, the lower back fattening into the mat. We try to come to a halfway position where we have the natural curve in our lower back, and our hip bone and pubic bone are flat and level at the top. Gently draw the core muscles downwards. Single and double leg lift. Lying on your back in the supine position, feet flat on the mat, knees pointing up to the ceiling, and shoulder blades drawn down your back. Breathing in deeply, drawing your navel downwards, and as you breathe out, releasing your foot from the floor and bringing the knee above the hip. As you inhale, slowly lowering the leg, replacing the foot to the mat. On your next out breath, hollow your navel down again, but this time lifting the other leg. And breathing in as the foot replaces onto the mat. Slowly alternating the single leg lift from one side to the other, always paying particular attention to the alignment of the leg, the knee above the hip, and the ankle level with the knee in a tabletop position. Try to avoid rolling across the buttocks as you raise each leg. We want to keep the body very stable throughout our exercises. The shoulders should remain drawn down and the top of the rib cage relaxed. Keep your breathing full and controlled, and throughout, keeping your core muscles gently braced. You can move this exercise on to the double leg lift, raising your first leg on the out breath as before, and then raising the second leg. Returning each foot to the mat one at a time, always on an out breath for each leg lowering. If you find your lower back arching off the mat, you need to go back to the single knee lift. Also, if you find your core muscles pushing outwards or potting towards the ceiling, you again need to drop the level of the exercise back to accommodate a slight lack of strength. If this exercise is uncomfortable for your lower back, again, go back to the single leg lift. You can alternate each of these exercises if you want to, starting your double leg lift with your right leg the first time, and then perhaps the left leg the second time. Remember to stop when you start to feel fatigued. Clam, lying on the right side. Same positioning as before, spine long, natural curve in the lower back, knees tucked slightly forwards, hand resting on the top thigh. On the out breath, drawing the core muscles in, keeping the feet together and lifting the top leg as high as possible, pointing the knee up above you. Remember, as before on the other side, feeling the tension in the leg at the top of the position, but not allowing it to push you back onto the underneath buttock. I want you to feel the resistance without it driving you backwards. The neck should be long and the side of the head resting gently on the forearm that's curled behind you. Always scoop the tummy muscles away from the mat as if you were creating a little tunnel underneath your waist. Attempt to get that diamond shape. When finished, bring the top knee over, relax it on the mat ahead of you, and allow the gluteal muscle to stretch. The plank, 3/4 and full. Lying on your front with your legs extended behind you slightly apart. Elbows tucked in close to one another and the tops of your arms drawn in snugly to your rib cage. Draw your shoulder blades down your back towards your hips and lengthen your neck. Your hands can either be clasped together or flat on the mat. Breathing in, drawing the navel upwards, pressing down on the knees and lifting the hips, so the hips are level with the shoulders. Holding the position for as long as you wish, and then rolling the thighs back onto the mat, lengthening the spine out. Repeat this exercise, ensuring each time that your elbow is directly underneath your shoulders, supporting your upper body. Check that you're not dropping the head, nor lifting the neck too high, and that you're a straight line from your tailbone through to the crown of your head. Between each plank, you may need to adjust the elbows. When I'm doing the plank exercises, I always imagine a belt drawn in around my center, keeping my powerhouse, my core stability muscles pulled in nice and tightly, supporting my frame. If you wish to move on with the plank, you can move into the full plank. Lifting up into that 3/4, then straightening the legs, lifting up onto the toes. Still keeping the hips level with the shoulders, and always lowering the knees back to the mat first to keep the lower back stable before you roll the front of the pelvis and the tummy back onto the mat. Notice here how Fionn keeps her neck directly in line with her spine, with her eye line diagonally down towards the mat. You can hold the plank for as long as you wish. The stronger you get, the longer you will be able to hold the position. Don't try to hold for too long to begin with. Gradually let your strength build. Always be careful when lowering your knees to the mat that you don't bang your knees on the floor. If you feel any tension in the lower back, please revert back to the earlier exercise, the 3/4 plank. When you've finished your plank exercise, extend your arms forward, relax your chest down on your mat. Pelvic curls. Lying in the supine position, breathing in, tilting the pelvis and gently rolling the lower back away from the mat. Inhaling at the top and then rolling down again, allowing the tailbone to settle into the floor. As you peel the spine away from the mat, don't roll too far. Remember to keep the lowest part of your rib cage on the mat behind you. As you roll yourself up, check that you're not allowing your knees to drop out to the sides. They should remain aligned with the front point of the hip bone. We're looking for a gentle rocking motion here, stretching through the lower back, activating the muscles in the bottom and the thighs, whilst keeping the core muscles gently drawn in. The rolling motion of this exercise of the pelvis is very important, and Fionn demonstrates it here with her arms out of the way. You can see the way she tilts the tailbone underneath. The pubic bone rises as she peels the buttocks and the lower back off the floor. Lastly, settle your tailbone into the mat and relax. Side single leg lift. Side lying, legs extended straight away from you, making sure that you have the natural curve in your lower back and your top hand is resting on the top thigh. Support your neck and head with your other arm curled backwards, making sure your neck stays in line with your spine. Breathing in, drawing your core muscles inwards. As you start to exhale, lifting your top leg so the ankle is approximately level with the top hip, and then lowering your leg down to your bottom leg. As you lift the top leg up, make sure that you're straightening the leg out and extending it away from your pelvis. Take care not to lift the leg too high. Each time your leg rises, your core muscles are drawn away from the mat into a little curve, creating an arch under the side of your body. Always remember to keep the top shoulder drawn down. Side lying double leg lift. In the same position as for the single, but on the out breath, squeezing the thighs together and elevating both of the legs away from the mat on the out breath. Inhaling as they slowly lower back onto the mat, always allowing them to gently touch back onto the floor. As you do this exercise, you should feel a slight tightening above the top hip and reach the fingertips closer to the knee joint each time your legs elevate. Make sure you're not allowing your heels to drop behind your hips, thus creating too big a curve in the lower back. Again, the core muscles should be drawn away from the floor throughout. The shoulder bridge. Lying on your back in the supine position. Breathing in, drawing your navel downwards, tilting your pelvis and rolling your spine away from the mat. Take a deep in breath into the rib cage at the top, re-engage your tummy muscles, and as you breathe out, gently roll your spine back onto the mat. Inhaling again, tilting and rolling away from the mat, leading with the pubic bone on the way up and on the way down, making sure that the pubic bone is the last part of the trunk to level out. As you roll to the top, make sure you're not pushing the hips up too high. You should be resting midway up your shoulder blades and on the soles of your feet, not putting a lot of the pressure on the back of your neck. Check that your chin is just gently drawn downwards, making sure as you look upwards you can see as much ceiling behind as in front of you. This exercise can also be taken up a level using an arm extension. So as before, tilting and rolling to the top, breathing in as your preparation, drawing your core muscles in and extending your arms above your head. Breathing in as your arms come back above your shoulders, placing them back down onto the mat, and then rolling your spine back onto the floor. Make sure that your hips remain in the high position, both as your arms reach above you and as they draw back. Think of rolling the spine back onto the mat, one vertebra at a time, and always ensuring that you relax the muscles in your bottom so your pelvis can level out. You will find that this exercise really increases the flexibility of your back and also tones your buttocks and your thighs. If you find the arm extension too much, just stay with level 1, rolling up and then rolling down again. When you finish shoulder bridge, just relax on your mat and rest. Rolling back, sitting tall, balanced on the sit bones, shoulder blades down, knees raised. Take a deep in breath. As you breathe out, tilt your pelvis and start rolling your spine towards the floor. Extend the arms directly above the head. Inhaling deeply, drawing the navel down, and as you bring your arms over, lower your chin onto your chest, slowly peeling the spine off the mat, taking the head over towards the knees and lengthening back up to your start position. You can perform this exercise with the hands on the sides of the leg or extended directly in front of you. Make sure you keep the knees raised on this exercise if you have any tightness or soreness in your lower back. And if you can't roll all the way to the floor, then you can roll halfway and then roll yourself back up again. This exercise can also be performed with the legs straight. Arms reached ahead of you, articulating the spine down to the mat as before, stretching the toes away from the hips as the arms reach overhead. Continuing with that deep in breath, arms over, unsticking the spine from the mat and reaching with the arms over towards the ankles as you draw back to the upright position. Same as before with the knees raised. If you can't roll all the way to the mat, you go as far as you can with control, keeping your core muscles tight. You take the in breath and then you roll forwards, always keeping the curve in the back until you draw the spine to the upright position. When the arms are extended above your head, ensure that you slide the shoulder blades down your back towards your hips so you keep the length in the neck. The slower you can do this exercise and the more control you can achieve, the better it is. The tummy muscles should remain flattened and braced throughout. Always finish your exercise in your starting position. Side lying, single and double leg lift, this time lying on the right side. Legs extended, hand resting on the top of the thigh, top shoulder drawn down. Breathing in, drawing the core muscles in and raising the top leg to hip level. Breathing in as the leg slowly lowers. As the leg raises, make sure it's completely straight and it's lengthening away from the top of your hip, as if someone were holding onto your ankle and gently drawing the leg away from you. Always make sure that your core muscles are withdrawn from the mat, creating a little arch under the side of the waist. If you find you're a little unstable, your hand can always be placed on the mat ahead of your hips. We move on to the double leg lift as before, floating the legs off the mat, thinking more of the extension of the legs rather than the height of the lifting. As your legs elevate, you'll be able to reach your fingertips slightly further towards your knee joint. Make sure that the top shoulder isn't rolling backwards, or you might fall over. Finally, when you've finished, lower your legs to the mat. The 100. Lying on your back in your supine position again, arms resting at your sides. Taking a deep breath in, drawing the tummy down, raising one knee to the tabletop position. Inhaling, bracing the core and raising the second leg. And then starting your pulsing. Breathing in, pulsing with the palms down towards the floor for 5. Breathing out, pulsing with the palms up towards the ceiling for 5. Whilst keeping the knees aligned above the hips and the tummy flattened out. Take care not to bring the knees in too close to the tummy. They should stay aligned above the hip joint. To make this exercise a little more difficult, you can raise the head, neck and shoulders away from the mat, sliding the shoulder blades again down towards the hips, keeping the core muscles tight, and continuing with your 5 pulses breathing in and 5 pulses breathing out. Of course, you can decide to support the back of your neck with one hand or maybe both hands and just count your pulsing. At the end of the 100, the knees are gently drawn into the chest and the head lowers down onto your mat. Cat stretch. Hands and knees position, remembering to have the knees under the hips and the hands below the shoulders, back flattened out. Breathing in, drawing the core muscles in, gently tilting the pelvis forward and curving the back towards the ceiling. As you breathe in, sliding the tailbone away from the top of the head to return to the flat back position. Tilting the pelvis again, drawing the navel in towards the spine, letting the head just drop with the crown of the head pointing towards the mat, and then always lengthening the neck out again so it's level with the remainder of your spine. Take care not to rock the weight too far back over the knees, neither to have the hands too far forwards, as you will be placing too much pressure on your wrists. If this was uncomfortable for your hands, you could always do this exercise with your fingers tucked underneath, resting on your knuckles. On each cat stretch, you will get a little more mobilization of your spine, and hopefully a little more contraction through your abdominal wall. Make sure between each one you always return to the neutral spine position and not overarch the lower back. When you've finished, you can take your hips back to your heels and stretch your arms forward into a child's pose stretch. Swimming. This is a classic Pilates exercise. Start it on all fours, hands under your shoulders, knees under your hips with your knees hip-width apart. Lengthen your spine. Breathe in, draw your core muscles inwards, and as you breathe out, lengthen and lift one leg behind you to hip level. As you breathe in, touch your toe back on the mat and draw your knee directly under your hip. Scoop your tummy muscles in again, and this time lengthen and lift the other leg. On the in-breath, lowering the toe to the mat first and sliding the knee underneath the hip. Whilst you perform this exercise, you're trying to keep the trunk as still and stable as possible. So it can be useful to visualize something balanced on your back, such as a marble, and you need to minimize any movement in your trunk to stop the marble rolling off. The leg should only lift to hip level, and you should avoid twisting in your pelvis. If you start to twist, keep your leg a little lower so you can control any movement in your body. This exercise can also be moved on to incorporate an arm movement, extending the arm and the leg on opposite sides of the body, and inhaling as the hand draws under the shoulder and the knee under the hip. Think of being in a straight line from your fingertips of your extended arm through to the toes of the extended leg. Try to keep the neck level with the spine and the natural curve in the lower back. Hollow the abdominals away from the floor each time you extend the arm and the leg. Make sure your movements are all performed very slowly, coordinated with your breath. If you find the arm and the leg together too much, revert to just the legs as before. When you've finished your swimming exercise, you can gently lower your hips back towards your heels and relax. Knee drops. Lying on your back in the normal supine position, extend your arms out to the sides, ensuring that your shoulders are not lifted and that your hands are slightly below the level of your shoulders. Breathing in, drawing the core muscles downwards, and as you start to exhale, let your knees gently start to lower over to one side. Keeping your shoulder blades on the mat, inhale, drawing the navel inwards again, and slowly returning your knees to the top position. As you breathe out again, switching the core muscles on, but allowing the knees this time to lower over to the other side. Inhaling, drawing the navel downwards, and returning your knees to the center. You continue with this rolling motion slowly from one side to the other, making sure that you keep equal distance throughout between the knees and the feet. It's important to maintain the stability of the shoulder blades on the mat and to look directly up to the ceiling with the chin slightly drawn downwards. If you have extremely good rotation through your midsection, you may find yourself wanting to rest the thigh down on the mat. But please avoid doing this because it takes the tension out of the center of your body, which we need to maintain throughout our Pilates exercises. You should get a gentle, comforting rolling motion as you roll across the hips. Ensure you're not lifting one foot off the mat each time you roll over to the side, that you're just rolling onto the outside of one foot and the inside of the other. You should be experiencing a nice stretch through the side of the body as you roll this from one side to the other. Finally, return your knees to the center. Cool down, stretch and relax. Don't be tempted to miss out this part of the DVD, it's most important. Lie on your back, extend one leg up towards the ceiling and grasp behind the thigh. Gently draw this straight leg over towards your shoulder, keeping the base of your spine on the mat and the other knee bent with the foot on the floor. Release it, and then take your ankle across the other knee. Let the knee drop out to the side so the hip is open, and gently draw up the underneath leg, bringing the top ankle towards your chest. Of course, keeping your core muscles pulled in. Slowly return the underneath foot to the mat and place your other foot onto the floor. We repeat this on the other side, extending the leg as before, clasping at the back of the thigh or the calf if you can reach it, and drawing the leg in towards you. Your foot can be pointed or relaxed. Once you've held the stretch for a short while, release it, and again take this ankle across the other knee, allowing the knee to point out to the side, pulling the navel down and raising the underneath leg up to encourage this ankle also over towards your chest, giving you a stretch in your glute. After holding this position for a few seconds, release it and take both feet back onto the mat. Slowly roll yourself over onto your tummy and push up onto the all-fours position. Bring yourself to the top end of your mat and extend one leg back. With your toes tucked under, your leg is straight, and very gently push against the ball of the foot, extending the heel away from your hip. Feeling a stretch both in the back of the leg and at the front of the hip. After holding this for a few seconds, swap over to the other side. Make sure you're not twisting in the pelvis and that you're pushing against the ball of the foot of this side also. Then draw this knee in, place it under your hip with your hands under your shoulders and draw up onto your knees, extending one foot forward into a hip flexor stretch. Make sure your spine is long, your tummy is drawn in, and your front heel is firmly down onto the mat ahead of you. You can rest your hands on your front thigh and then draw the weight back, swap the leg over so the other leg extends. Same control through your core, shoulders back and down, hands resting on your front leg, and front heel in contact with the mat, giving you a good stretch through your hip. Draw your weight back to the center and bring yourself slowly up to standing. We resume our standing posture that we learnt at the beginning of the DVD, drawing the core muscles in. We take a slow slide with the hand down the side of the thigh, lengthening the side of the body, allowing the head to go with the movement, and breathing in as we draw back to the center. And now a stretch over to the other side, holding this position for a little longer than we did in our warm-up section, and drawing back to the middle. And finally, taking a deep in breath, drawing the core inwards, pushing into a squat, tucking your tail underneath, rolling through your spine, letting your shoulders settle drawing to the upright position, and your workout is finished.